This is another guy that I think is doing exactly what he set out to do. I bet if you go back to his elementary school yearbook, if they had one, not only was the editor and publisher, but he probably made the statement, you know what I'd like to do? I'd like to be the number one featured guy on the Miami Dolphins beat after a sensational career with a very diverse background in various sports coverage aspects, but with the Sun Sentinel and many other newspapers. The great Chris Perkins joins us here on the show. Chris, how are you, my friend?
Defo, at my age, I think my yearbook was done with a piece of granite and a chisel, right? How far back my yearbook goes.
Time. Wake up with Defo, joined by Lubie. Welcome to the Defo Show.
And a very pleasant good morning, everybody. Great to be with you here on the Defo Show. Jeff DeForest, one Mike, Lubie Lubitz, the Luberonski. And we're midweek here, even though we've only been on the air like one day out of the last 17. Absolutely fantastic. But cruising along here in 2023. Later on today, we're going to juxtapose a couple of things, at least timing-wise, as Tony Segreto is going to go old school with us about 7:40 this morning, 7:40 or so. We'll have Tony on the show, and we'll have him there for an hour. That's brought to you by Texas Roadhouse Restaurants and Catholic Health Services. And Tony's going to join us for an hour, and then that'll be followed by a conversation with one of our favorites. And we discovered this guy as a great conversationalist, a terrific. He was a radio guest for us at the time, but now on the streaming service. Always great to catch up with our good friend Charlie Partridge, who is the defensive line coach of the Pittsburgh Panther college football team. Obviously, very much in focus in the news as Damar Hamlin played there. And, of course, Charlie knew Hamlin well. And I don't know that he wants to dwell on what's going on there. Obviously, people are unaware and don't want to make all kinds of speculative statements about his medical situation. But, he can certainly speak to what kind of person this guy was. Or we're discovering he was just a really great kid and was living his dream there. 6th-round pick, second year in the league, was already establishing himself as a vital component of the Buffalo Bills defense, which has been vaunted throughout the season, as the Bills generally were considered not only in having a dynamic offense, but by also having a very significant defensive presence to be among the, if not the favorite, to win the Super Bowl championship this year. I'm not sure if Kansas City has eclipsed them and moved into that spot at this point. Interestingly, the Bills will host a game on Sunday, and that's probably a good thing that they're not on the road if you were talking about their mental state. The Bills, we don't know what the status of that game will be in terms of, I believe they'll play it, and I think the Bills will be focused and be able to play their game, whatever the status happens to be of Hamlin, who seemed to make, at least by reports, it's impossible to gauge, but according to reports, it was making modest progress. Nothing overwhelmingly significant, but certainly that was a better sign than finding out that he was in a very grave situation, which he still remains in critical condition, never good. And, the other consideration is what kind of consequences will there be when a person stops breathing for a period of time and blood stops flowing to the brain. There are other complications that develop that would obviously be an impediment and impairing to Hamlin later on down the road if, indeed, they took hold. So supposedly, this can lead to all kinds of different things, lung damage, various forms of brain disability, and, it just depends how long and, how much damage was actually transpiring while they were reviving him. They revived him twice, once on the field. And you can understand the horror of the players. Imagine, I don't know, and everybody was talking about this like it was unprecedented. It is unprecedented, I believe, in the sense that I don't know that we've ever seen a guy stop breathing in an NFL game. All of the examinations for injuries, we've seen the cart come out on the field. If it doesn't come out on the field once at least every other game, it's kind of a surprise. There, as we say, rarely is a time where more than a few plays go off without somebody laying on the field there in some kind of injured fashion. Or it's not like the soccer game, too, where they're faking. Although once in a while, late in a ball game, you'll see guys take a dive and stay down. And they did make a rule to address that with the 10-second runoff so that you could, avoid having teams deliberately just laying down on the field to conserve time on the clock. None of that was in play here. This was obviously a very serious and grave catastrophic incident. He did stop breathing. Now, I mean, if you're on the field, I can't imagine what this would be like. And you're looking at a teammate who just fell down, and you're thinking, oh, geez, I hope it's not a knee. And you look and you see that the guy is not breathing, period. That would horrify, I would imagine, almost anybody, whether it was something that happened as a result of playing the sport, whether it was the result of some pre-existing condition that Hamlin had with his heart that had gone undetected, or had not been treated. Maybe it never even occurred before that he would even have these kind of problems. There is the theory out there that because he did get hit in the chest, that trauma could have triggered the sort of electronic response. Here I am speculating, Louis. I'm trying not to be a doctor here. I'm not attempting to be. This is just, from the reports that we've seen, I think we can at least deduce that it is possible that the trauma of the hit might have triggered the heart attack. He does get up and seems to be fine, and then all of a sudden just collapses. It's possible. I can't imagine that if this guy was on the border of having a heart attack, which can pop up instantaneously, but seems very unlikely in a 24-year-old guy that's working out every day of the week and has the kind of physical conditioning it would take to play defensive back in the National Football League. So all you can do, as people have been saying, is wish for the best for Damar Hamlin. I keep waiting for some really good information to come out, something that says, hey, guess what? He's passed the tough stage, and he's going to be okay. I would imagine that would also be a great inspiration for the Buffalo Bills, who would have to be somewhat distracted in their final game. But what does it mean, Lubie? Because if you look at the standings, Kansas City is going to play all of their games this season. They're obviously in Week 18 going to have their 17th contest. And the Chiefs go against the Raiders, a team that's given them problems in the past and always does. Bit of rivalry, favored by 7 and a hook on Saturday. And if the Chiefs win that game with the Bills playing one less game, the Chiefs then would have the best record in the AFC. So what do you do about that? I don't know. There is no solution yet on the table. I'm thinking just out of humanity, you probably have to accept that this was a fluke, and that even though the Buffalo Bills would have a great advantage in having home field advantage throughout the playoffs, and if they do play the Chiefs, if that's an eventuality in the postseason, where would you rather play if you were the Buffalo Bills, in Buffalo or in Kansas City? Now, Kansas City is inclined to have some horrible weather also in the wintertime. The Bills and Chiefs both accustomed to those kind of conditions, but I would think with the home crowd and the home field advantage that would be a huge edge if those two teams were to meet in a championship game. But I don't see any other solution except to just scratch that game from the schedule. I don't know how you can't make it up in the middle of the week and then ask the team to play on a weekend. No. You can't have them come back after they play on Sunday, the Buffalo Bills and the Cincinnati Bengals, who were impacted by this, but certainly not to the same extent because it was not their guy that they're concerned with, although they did. I mean, what class and dignity, I think, was shown by the Cincinnati Bengals entire organization, teammates, the people on the team, front office, coaching staff. They couldn't have been any more classy about what took place. I mean, it is a bitter rivalry, and it was a huge game in terms of the consequences and the ramifications for the championship. And whoever won that game was going to be in pretty good shape, right? Cincinnati still would have had a chance to get home field advantage throughout the playoffs also and dodge going to either Kansas City or Buffalo down the road. But I'm imagining they're just going to scratch that game and have Cincinnati and Buffalo play one less game, which I don't think it's fair to, throw those teams in a shake because you really don't know what the outcome of that game would have been. The way it was trending early on, Cincinnati was in pretty good shape in that game, as they scored on their first drive, gave up a field goal, and then were on the march there in their second drive. And they have gotten it together since that abysmal start that they had to the season. What were they, 0-2, and were they 2-4 also?
The Bengals?
The Cincinnati Bengals? They got off to a really slow start.
I mean,
they lost their first couple. Yeah. And people were wondering what the hell was going on. Joe Burrow was getting sacked an inordinate number of times. He always does, but, I mean, it was even unusual by the Bengals standards. And you thought, wow, Jamar Chase was out for a while. But they managed to pull together a really good season, won a bunch of games down the stretch. And we're in a good position to maybe knock off the Bills in that contest. And that would have made it a three-way shake for who was going to win the AFC championship with Kansas City involved. I think at that point, though, Kansas City would have held a big edge. If the Bengals had won that ball game, KC would have had, what, 3 losses, and the other 2 teams would have had 4. So KC, if they prevail in their game against the Raiders, I guess by all rights, probably deserves to, have the home field advantage. I just don't know what the NFL can do about it. All of these people that believe that they're going to play one isolated game a week after the season ends, when it should be the start of the wild card playoffs, which they've obviously been gearing up for a long time because they added more teams in. You're going to have 10 wild card games on that weekend. What is it? 5 wild card games? Yeah, 10 teams. How crazy is that, right? I mean, it used to be like 3, and you were orgasmic, thinking, "Wow, this is amazing." And now, so that weekend's going to be loaded. I cannot see all of the different things that would have to go into rearranging a week postponement possibly taking place. I mean, you're far better off having a screwed up season from the standpoint of fairness than you would be to change everything to accommodate those 2 teams finishing off that game by themselves, isolated a week after the season. Seems like a preposterous idea. So that's probably what's going to happen, right? I mean, can you see Roger Goodell calling all of the television people, all of the stadiums, all of the different arrangements that have already been made, to accommodate these games, which, not everybody knows. Not everything is etched in stone where these games are going to take place. But with only 2 teams getting a bye, the conference leaders, then, you have what? You have 6 and 6 going. That's what? 12 games, right? Is it 12 or 6 games? 6 games.
It's 6 games.
6 games, yeah.
12
6
teams.
games. Yeah, 12 teams, 6 games. Unbelievable.
Yes, there's a lot going on.
Should have indulged in a little more THC before I got on the show.
Say, just
My mathematical instincts are suddenly, evaporating. Well, I am operating under a little bit of duress. I got an ice bag on my foot here. I have to go see the doctor today, but another problem has popped up that is far more inhibiting than the toe itself. Because all of a sudden, I guess, I don't know if it was from walking awkwardly or whatever, my entire left foot, the top of it and the ankle, has swelled up to a point where I can barely take a step, Lubie. If we were out on the road today, which you will be with the Mayo Show, I would be coming in on crutches.
Oh, God.
So I'm hoping to get some relief there. Dr. Jerry is a little bit reluctant, I sense, to prescribe medication. He doesn't really get into painkiller or anything like that. In fact, he is one to ignite pain. So, as much as I was looking forward to this a couple of days ago, thinking, wow, this is going to be great, because there's a possibility I can get out of this funky shoe, put my regular shoes on, walk like a man, get back to my walks of life and all of that stuff, broken toe notwithstanding. Right now, I mean, unbelievable. And this ice is melting, and it's just it's a real problem, Louis. Do I look a wreck? I don't feel as bad as I should, but sitting down here, is a lot better than the few steps that I took earlier this morning, including a very, very cautious step into the shower, where I have kind of a huge thing to climb over, and then that first step, you could go for that Pete Rose slide, There's a banana peel. All right, a couple of things. I wanted to get into this. I cut this out from yesterday because it struck me as I was reading it that if you were ever going to unload on a game and go against the grain of the people from Action Sports, this was the ball game. All right, I'll give you the logic here, Lubie. This is, again, written by C. Jackson Callard, who we've quoted many times in these circumstances, have we not? Seems like we go to this guy a lot. And he is writing about his play of the day from yesterday, okay?
Oh, no.
Orangeworth squeeze against lowly Louisville.
Oh, no.
It's hard to find many good things to say about the Louisville men's basketball team, which is on pace for its worst season since World War II. Now, that's going back. This isn't like, hey, this is the best they've done since 2019. World War II, my friend.
No, they're bad. FSU's horrendous, and they beat them by 20.
Yes, Louisville has been horrific this year. I think they have 2 wins, and they're over really schmanky teams. So
yes, and they barely won.
It's even harder to find reason to back this group in Tuesday's conference opener against Syracuse, which has turned it on after a slow start to the year. Now, I have not necessarily witnessed them turning it on. I did witness a lot of the slow start. I have never seen so many bricks, my God, in my lifetime. The Manley Fieldhouse, I guess, Is that still in existence, or do they do everything? I would imagine they do everything at the Carrier Dome, and the Manley Fieldhouse has been torn down. Used to be the practice facility, and actually used to be where Syracuse played its basketball games when I was in school there.
I mean, heading into last night, just to underscore his point, they were 10-4 and 3-0 in the conference. Just to underscore his point, heading into last night.
Okay, so I mean, so far logic is somewhat prevailing here. Louisville admittedly stinks. Syracuse had that kind of shown signs of life. All right, so we're not arguing with the first couple of paragraphs here.
Yeah,
Then Syracuse edged Notre Dame in its ACC opener to spark a 6-1 run over the last 7, blemished only by a 2-point loss against Pittsburgh. The Cardinals, meanwhile, own wins over Western Kentucky and Florida A&M, but have dropped their other 12 contests by an average of 16.5 points per game. Saturday's 23-point loss at Kentucky marked this team's 6th loss by at least 20 points, and the 5th time its mediocre defense has allowed 80-plus. All right? That isn't even the worst issue. I mean, so far you have a dynamite case to go ahead and lay 9 with Syracuse, do you know? That's not even the worst issue. Louisville's isolation-heavy offense is plagued by comically bad ball movement. The Cardinals are turning it over at 23.8% of their possessions, and they've generated an assist on just 40% of their made field goals. Pretty tough to do since they give assists out like they do in hockey now, where you were the goalie and you shoveled the puck out from behind the net. The next guy passed it to a guy who got a breakaway, and the goalie gets an assist.
Yep.
All right. That's kind of how they do it in basketball now. It used to be you had to make a great pass. Not even necessarily just, fly the ball across the court to a shooter who makes a jump shot. I guess that's an assist. But you used to have to make some kind of, reasonably, interesting pass, to get an assist. Didn't you, Lubie?
Yes.
They didn't just hand them out like they hand out, those stars for the Ohio State helmets. Which how do you get one of those, Lubie?
The Buckeyes? I don't know.
Yeah. What's that based on? I mean, some guys, their whole helmet. In fact, all of them, even like the linemen, their whole helmet has got stars on it. I always loved that, man. Because didn't you always want to get a gold star? Like you didn't have that system when you were in school, right?
Yes, we did.
Well, they had the gold star, the silver star, the blue star, and then I was always getting the red. Dripping in blood.
I feel like Defo wasn't getting a lot of gold.
Every now and then I would get competitive and, actually try. I didn't really assert myself very much in school. I'll be the first to admit that. Syracuse won by 23 points when these two teams played last year, and it's 2-3 zone. Still playing a 2-3. Way to go, Jimmy B. Way to get innovative on that after 50 years in a game. It's 2-3 zone. Should frustrate the listless Louisville offense to no end. Expect a blowout in this one. Syracuse -9 was the point.
Oh, no. Expect a blowout.
Expect a blowout. Yeah, expect to blow out the candles on your finances. I mean, whatever. I mean, a very eloquently written, reasonably, logic-based assessment of what was going to happen in that game. But what he forgot was it's Syracuse we're talking about. And, I guess they on the road, I think, also in that game. I believe so. But nonetheless, as I'm watching the crawl, I couldn't find a game on TV. ACC Network was playing Notre Dame Boston College, which probably was ordered or mandated by a series of letters written to the network executives by Jim Sarney to get more BC basketball on, even though I think they cracked 500.
It was in Louisville. The game was at Louisville.
Yeah, okay. So you're laying 9 points on the road with a Syracuse team that looked like shit for the early portion of the season. I would be reluctant to do that. Because I don't trust them. I don't. As much as I love my Syracuse Orange basketball, I don't love it as much as I used to because I just don't follow it that closely. I'm not one of these guys that is stuck in my school like you, Lubie. But you're only 40, so you're still not that far away from it, far removed. By the time I was 2 years out of college, as much as I enjoyed going there, I mean, if they won a ball game or not, I could give a flying one. All right. Like to see them do well, right? You always like to see the people that you were involved with at some point in some way do well. And I'm a big Jimmy B fan because he was the freshman basketball coach when I was at Syracuse, and I got to run a little bit with those guys. I wasn't on the team. I don't want to make any kind of George Santos type of claims. But because I was on the baseball team, the guy that lived next door to me was a very, very integral part of the climb and the rise of Syracuse basketball, a guy named Mike Lee. And he roomed with a guy who was from Syracuse named Mark Waddick. And if you track Syracuse basketball history, Mark Waddick and Mike Lee just were pioneers, trailblazing the path for the rise of Syracuse basketball from being somewhat irrelevant all the way to contending yearly for or at least every so often for national championships. They blew the one that they should have won, right, with the Keith Smart shot, 1983. But and they really became a solid program. Jimmy B became a Hall of Fame coach, but Jim Boeheim was the freshman coach, and Mike used to ask my roommate and I, who were on the baseball team, to come and fill a role in practice because the freshman team only had 5 scholarship players. So they had 5 scholarship players. They needed guys to run with them, So I did get involved in a few of these sessions. And I believe that Boeheim, Mike Lee told me, was snickering at some of the things that I was doing out there in the court in terms of. I got stuffed by a guy named Paul Petrowski. I'll never forget it. Yeah, do you remember like certain plays in your lifetime, even in recreational sports? And I used to go to the varsity games and think that Petrowski sucked. I couldn't even imagine how he was on the varsity. He was a sophomore when I was a freshman. And the guy was like 6'4", and he did not look like a basketball player. He looked like a bodybuilder, this guy, strong as an ox. So I'm out there, and I'm figuring, look, let me make an impression on Boeheim here, and, I'll just start firing shots up. And if I can hit with my usual consistency, because, I had played some ball, some, pickup games with Mike Lee, and he knew that I could play a little bit, so it wasn't like a total embarrassment that I was going to. I mean, look, they didn't want, people that were going to be falling all over themselves. Yeah. That wasn't going to help them any.
It's practice.
They wanted somebody, a body, to run, but, you had to be functional, all right? It was kind of like being on the Washington Generals in that role. And every now and then, your 5 would include a couple of the guys that were on scholarship. In my, recollection, I always had this guy on whatever side I was on, which I only did this about a half a dozen times. I don't lead people to believe that I was like a Syracuse basketball player. I wasn't. But we had this guy, Zeke Zilko. Zeke Zilko was like a 7-footer when there were no 7-footers. And it was very rare that a team had a 7-footer back then. And Zeke was all of 7 feet something. But he was a stiff. I don't know if, the Jewish kids probably, remember this very vividly, like how you felt at the time where, some guy that just happened to be tall would get priority over you, even though you were a way better basketball player.
I hated it so much.
Right? and you would get cut, and they would keep some guy because he was 6'5", even though he couldn't play a lick. Couldn't play. It was a spaz out there.
I hated it. I was so mad at him. If I was just taller, that's what I said my whole life.
But think about this, Louis. Jimmy B was having to, and this suited my talents perfectly because although I don't think that Boeheim was real happy with the way that I performed in the 2-3 zone, because obviously I was out top as a 6-footer, and my tendency from playing park recreational ball all of my life was to kind of sag towards the mid-court stripe as soon as there was any penetration.
Oh, no.
Because I was going to hold my right arm up in the air as if I was Jerry Rice and go, here.
You're running even though they still have the ball.
Yeah, but I do remember the first shot I tried to hoist up. I fired one up from about, I don't know, maybe like the wing. I still remember this vividly. And Petrowski was a couple of feet away from me. And then the ball came back, and I had Spalding written on my forehead. It literally like rubber. And I'm thinking, these guys are way better than we were. This is the worst guy, and he's good. Never so exhausted either. I mean, just to get your hands on a pass. I mean, the pace of the game, that was one thing I did learn from that, was that the transitional, times in sports where you go from high school to college to the pros, pace of the game is an enormous difference. Mm. And in a basketball game where, maybe you do certain things very well, I mean, all of a sudden, if you can't even get your hands on the ball, because the guy has been dogging you the entire time and is much faster than you, much stronger than you, and much more determined than you are, it's hard to play that lazy man's game and just hoist him from the outside. But Jimmy B was doing the 2-3 then, and he's doing the 2-3 now. Let's do the 2-3 Watusi.
I love that nothing's changed in 50 years.
Nothing. That's 1969, Lubie. That's when I was a freshman in college. 1969. So let's do the math on that.
That's 54
That's
years
31 plus 22. 54 years ago. was just hoping to get laid on a consistent basis. Anyway, that's my Jimmy B story.
Oh my God.
True story, no. I mean, we were out there running with the Fresh as they called them, and that was a very good team. I'm trying to think. One of my other friends on the team was a guy named Matt Barr. He never really did much, but he also had encouraged me to come out for these practice sessions because we used to play pickup games in the gym, and they were just they were looking for new fish basically to come in there. You were like a new fish at Oz.
I was gonna say,
Yeah. But at least there was a slight dose of respect because you played like another sport.
Yeah.
Right? They knew you weren't good enough to be on a basketball team at any level, but the fact that maybe your fastball was better than theirs. Because Mike Lee also played baseball. He was drafted by the Phillies, and I was on a baseball team. Played shortstop, was very good, but was much better at basketball than he was as a baseball player. There's your Syracuse history. Anyway, they were history last night. I'm watching on the crawl. I can't find a game. Sarni's Boston College team is, they weren't even stinking up the joint. I think they rallied and beat Notre Dame, which Notre Dame must not be very good this year.
FSU beat Notre Dame too. Notre Dame's weirdly bad.
Yeah, because, I mean, that was one of the things that this See, if you're going to have a name like C. Jackson Coward and be a handicapper, it's one thing if you're a representative from South Carolina or something. This is State Representative C. Jackson Coward. Doesn't it sound like some Republican?
The speaker, they finally named
the token black guy that got elected in South Carolina, right after like 70 years, where they're trying to reinstitute slavery. But as a handicapper, I don't. What are the qualifications to do that? Now, you have to know your stuff to be able to break a game down like that. Do you not? I mean, look, this is what you dreamt about doing your whole life, was to give in-depth game breakdowns on sports talk radio, which this guy, I mean, I never summarized the game that eloquently. Did you?
No, the info was right. Syracuse was playing well, and Louisville was a disaster. It just didn't work out that way.
What happened to instinct?
I don't know.
My instinct was to go against this cat.
I would not.
I didn't do it, but it would have been very, very profitable had I done so. As Cuse won the game, though. They did win the game by 1 point. But when I was watching on the crawl, it was like 50-50 with about 10 minutes to go in the second half, obviously. And, do you think would it be advisable for men, in college basketball to be playing games by quarters, or do you still like the two 20-minute?
I don't understand the half thing. I actually agree with you. I don't get the half. And
I never got it. I never got it my whole life. I never understood. I always thought it was weak. Don't you?
I don't get the half thing, and I don't get why the three-pointer is different. They're men. By the time they get, especially now in high school, they're not like little kids. Like, why is their three-pointer definitively closer than the NBA?
The three-point shot in high school and college is a joke.
Yeah,
that's like my normal range.
Yeah,
literally.
it's a regular shot. It's stupid.
It's a 20-foot shot. It's nothing. Right? Now, it is true. Outside of the corner shot in the NBA, that to me is, even being a fairly competent long-range shooter my entire life,
Not a shot.
that is a bit of a heave. I mean, you're starting to get into heave territory, and when you're heaving, let's face it, you're essentially throwing up.
I was going to say, you're heaving.
You're heaving, all right. As the coach looks and says, "But DeForest."
What the hell?
I don't think it took long for Jimmy B to surmise that I was not necessarily going to be cut out for the varsity the following season. And they disbanded the baseball program, so it was a free ride, Lubie. Man, and on top of that, we had the student strike, I guess, at the end of my sophomore year, where you were able to opt for this. This was brilliant, man, because I for a half a semester I actually focused on stuff.
For half a semester.
No, I was tired of like always, having to make excuses and last minute papers and all this garbage. So, and for some reason, I don't know, I had an epiphany or something. I said, you know what? I want to actually study a little bit. I was taking a few courses that I had some interest in also. So that was good. So I started reading the books. I started, following the material. And so for the first half of the semester, I ended up, I was doing great. I think I had like, 3 A's and a couple of B's working, right? Unfortunately, I went on spring break with this hot chick, and then we came down to Florida here, and that was it. My entire focus was gone. All I wanted to do was be in bed with this woman. All right, that was it. She was sort of dedicated, but very accommodating also, I would have to say.
Very accommodating.
I didn't mind it. I spent the rest of my time playing basketball in a gym and practicing with a band. That was it. And going to Vernon Downs. That was the other, activity that I engaged in, indulged in heavily when I was in college. Anyway, we get to the point now, and this was when the ultimate protests were going on in Vietnam. I mean, it was Kent State, and it was all of this stuff. And so they shut down the school and basically said, with the student strike, you can have the grade that you had at the midterm mark, or you can take a pass-fail in any course that you have a lousy grade in. So, my grades were beginning to suffer, because I hadn't, attended any classes after the spring break. And basically, didn't turn in any work. But I had a few A's working, so I took 2 A's, 2 B's, and I was about to fail one of my other courses. And I took an incomplete there and ended up making a dean's list. That was it.
Dean's list.
And for a rare occasion, it wasn't for conspicuous reasons, right? So anyway, that's it. That's my college history tour. Syracuse laying 9 last night, a complete brick. C. Jackson Cowart should be abolished from any future predictions. Do you know anybody? I mean, is there anybody on like FanDuel TV, ESPN? Any of these sources that you see guys are giving selections on, is there anybody that stands out?
It's good.
Where you go, wow, that guy always is on his game. I mean, you may not like everything that Mark Lawrence does on the show here because he's always picking long shots and underdogs. But, the guy's system is brilliant. You would have to respect it.
Yep.
And if it works for him, which it obviously has, then, I mean, look. Who am I to, go against it? But at least it's impressive, I mean, just like this guy's logic was impressive, but it was all flawed. Louisville inspired, to say, hey, you know what? Fuck this. We're not that bad. Took Syracuse to the wall there. I don't know. Was it one of the Boeheims? How many Boeheims are on the team right now?
I think there's still 7.
Boeheim wasn't even married when I was there. Unbelievable. You hadn't even met that woman yet. I think that might have occurred. I guess that took place later on where he met like some student and married her. But there's still Jill Boeheim, right? Isn't it Jill Boeheim? Everybody that's in this category, Baffert, Boeheim, they all marry girls named Jill. You ever date a girl named Jill, Lubie? I want to say no to that.
I don't know.
Never.
I known a couple of Jills in my entire life, but no, not really.
Yeah. All right. Well, I just... yeah, I had to reiterate those horror stories about Paul Petrowski. Still remember that big hand in my face. I was like, how did that guy block that shot? That's impossible, right? How did that? I mean, and it was dead on, too. It was going right through, and I was going to impress Boeheim, and the rest could have been history. I could have been out there on the court there with Dennis Duval. All right, Tony Segreto coming up in just a few moments here. Hialeah Park, a great place to go. Always fantastic. You can catch all kinds of action there. The Ponies, bingo, man. They're running in the Champion simulcasting room. Big tournament coming up, and it would be very tempting, to lay out the nickel and maybe enter the polyman in this thing because it's a $500 buy-in. 300 of that money is your bankroll. 200 goes to fees and the lunch and all of this other stuff. Okay, so for a deuce, you have a shot to go ahead and win money that day because you're trying to put together the biggest bankroll of the people in the tournament. And if you do, you not only win the prize money that's available at Hialeah Park that day, which is a few dimes, but you keep the money that you won, which might also be a few dimes, and then you get a passage for 2 there, hotel. Airfare for 2 and whatever it is, like a 3-night stay. I believe it's usually Bally's in Las Vegas where the tournament is held. And you're in the NHC, which I don't even know if you can buy your way into that anymore. I think it used to be a $10,000 buy-in, but I'm not sure. I think you might have to qualify through these various tournaments. But the prize money is huge. And from what I've seen, I mean, I know it's not easy, but I mean, it's not impossible that you could hit that. Right, Lubie? Because you're betting like a mythical $2, I think, win in place on a bunch of different selections. There's some mandatory races and stuff. But it seems like, the winner, you have to have a strategy. And that's what it's all about. And that's why this tournament's fun, too. So check that out. I'm not sure the exact date. You can look that up, hialeahpark.com. And the handicapping tournament, obviously going to be on a Saturday, I would assume. And it's going to involve 2 tracks, I think, Gergel said. Aqueduct and Gulfstream.
Nice.
So if you're good at those two tracks, you're in there with a real shot. And I tell you what, I had a blast the times I've gone out there for the NHC. That is a great thing. Even if you're just hanging with the guy who has the tournament entry, get treated like a champ, man. It's fantastic. You walk in there, and they got buffets and free racing forums, easy to bet, all kinds of stuff. Grab anything that you want. I mean, they really treat you very, very well during that. So take a shot at that. Highly apart. Enter the handicapping championship. If you're a horse player out there, think you really enjoy the contest. And if you happen to be lucky enough to win it, boom, you're off to Las Vegas for the NHC and a chance to win like $1 million, which is the top prize. All right, we're coming back with Tony Segreto. He's going to join us here. A little old school, a lot of stuff to cover with Tony. And Ed Garcia will be with us. I'm hoping Ed's okay because, wow.
Oh, jeez. That was rough.
Is he going to mention the two words clock management at any time? I didn't really see what everybody was griping about because I didn't watch all of that game. So what? Michigan had a chance to come back and win it at the end? Was that the deal? And Harbaugh blew the clock?
I don't know. I know that TCU was dominating until like near the end of the third quarter, and then all of a sudden it became a video game, and no one could stop each other. And Michigan got back in it, but to me, I never thought TCU was threatened. So maybe I missed the end, and Michigan. I don't know. I'm not gonna lie to you. Maybe Segreto knows.
Every play was like 100 yards. When I was
it was like weird. They couldn't score from the goal line 5 straight trips, but then they were getting like 80-yard bombs.
Every play, like I would throw a screen pass. Right through, like Zorro. All right, coming back with Tony, a little old school with Tony, brought to you by Texas Roadhouse Restaurants and Catholic Health Services. I'm Jeff DeForest. That's Mike Lubie Lubitz. And later on, we moved Tony up a little bit here so we could accommodate a conversation with Charlie Partridge. We do want to get his thoughts about Hamlin, who he coached at Pittsburgh. And it's good to get to know more about this young man because it seems like he was exactly the kind of guy that you would, like to have your son grow up to be.
Yes.
Just a very admirable, well-intentioned human being. That's great. I mean, the country's response. Nice to see something positive happen where, $5 million has been donated to this GoFundMe page that Hamlin had started to try and buy toys for kids in his hometown where he grew up. And he was looking for $2,500, and now I think it's over $5 million has been generated. So that's one of the good things that's come of this. And, always good to see people rallying around something other than Donald Trump. All right, come back with Tony in a moment. Now that. Right? Let's go charge the Capitol. Okay, Donnie. Where are you going to be? It's 7:40. Ponies in Style at Champions, the outstanding simulcasting room at beautiful Hialeah Park. Yes, the grand old lady of thoroughbred racing has never been more vibrant, and you can wager on the races from the top tracks around the country while enjoying a cocktail at the Brass Rail Bar or any of the fine food served throughout the facility. If poker is your game, you're covered in style, and you can play all your favorite Vegas-style games, including blackjack, craps, and roulette, in Hialeah Park's sizzling hot casino. Get a player's card when you walk through the door for all kinds of generous amenities, including our favorite, free play, when you come out to the ultimate casino and entertainment destination, Hialeah Park.
Hey folks, Tony Segreto here. Since day one, Catholic Health Services has been part of Old School. And since we've started letting people know about them, it's changed their lives. You see, Catholic Health Services, while being recognized as one of the top places for stroke rehab in the country, it's also about a group of people who not just excel in what they do, from the doctors to the nurses to the therapist, on and on and on. It's how they do what they do every single day that separates them from the pack. They do it with a passion, unmatched, and the inclusion of family in every step of the process. Trust me when I tell you this. If you want the best, unmatched rehab with a special group of skilled, caring people, there is truly only one place, and that one place is Catholic Health Services.
These days, we're all looking for comfort anywhere we can find it. Thank goodness for Landlubbers Raw Bar and Grill in the Plantation location because they are making sure you are as comfortable as possible. First of all, they're not only open for delivery and pickup. All you have to do is go to landlubbersbarandgrill.com for both pickup and free delivery. Their hours have changed a little bit. Monday through Thursday from 3:30 to 10, and Friday, Saturday, and Sunday from 11:30 to 10. You're going to have the best wings in the world. You're going to have a great burger. You're going to have their amazing soups. Again, Landlubbers, Raw Bar, and Grill. It's nice and easy. Just go to landlubbersbarandgrill.com for both your pickup and free delivery. Thank goodness for Landlubbers for making you always feel right at home.
What we gonna do right here is go back.
way back into time.
We are now kicking it old school with the one and only Tony Segreto. Brought to you by Catholic Health Services and Texas Roadhouse.
It was a little weird. It sounded like we had to tell somebody to turn their radio down. There, background. Oh, Tony, you got the TV going in the background?
Oh, we got to turn the TV down.
Yeah, you got to do something. Turn your radio down. What's your question for the coach? Sonny,
good morning.
Good morning. How are you, Tony? You all right?
I'm doing fantastic.
Yeah,
fantastic. Yeah,
all right.
Doing great.
Looks like you're back in the cozy confines of Vermont. What's that like? Don't be driving any snowplows either. See what happened to Jeremy Renner? Wow.
No. No snow plows for me.
Yeah.
No snow plows. Things are great. We we could use a little snow, but other than that,
snow.
We could use snow.
Wow.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah.
That's interesting. I just pictured you snowed in there like the rest of the country.
Goodness me. No, I have learned after all these years with you that you tend to exaggerate just pretty much everything. So
embellishment is the name of the game, my friend. Yeah. Always embellish whatever it is that you're talking about here. Otherwise, it tends to lack a little luster in terms of interest.
Have we had a range of emotions over these last few days?
Things were going great. Until this incident.
Oh my goodness me! I have to tell you, from a personal note, it was one of those things where you were gravitated to it. You didn't want to stop watching because you wanted to get more and more updates. But at the same time, it was just such a gut punch. It was just the pictures, the live look at these at the teams as to what was going on, and then to hear this morning that he was actually resuscitated a second time when he got to the hospital.
Right. Stop breathing twice.
And where they are in the process, which I have been through with my folks, and very familiar with how all of this works. It's just been, but at the same time, the outpouring of support and love is
very remarkable.
To your comment toward the end of the break, leading into the show. It's nice to see this country come together like they have, and the GoFundMe now is really for fear of correcting you. The latest is it's like within $100,000 of 6 million. It's incredible.
They had 5 last night when I was watching, and I was like, well, that's amazing, Because, for people to respond like that, this was not a well-known NFL player by any stretch. He was a 6th-round draft pick out of Pittsburgh, and later on we're going to, at least get some kind of a characterization of, what this person was like from Charlie Partridge. But, it seems like the consensus is already out there that everybody agrees this guy was a great guy.
Yeah, Mike Tomlin knew him. Mike Tomlin had great comments about him, too. It's just, he exemplifies, again, to your words, what we look for in an athlete. One
of the good stories, Tony.
Yeah, a really good story. So I just think I thought the way both coaches, the way both teams, what saddened me about the whole thing, the one negative side is to go on social media right afterwards, and you see all of the negative stuff that's being portrayed. Why didn't the NFL do this? Why didn't they do that? Why is this happening? Why did that happen? It's like, enough, stop already. Would you please let's just worry about this young man, and let's be thankful we were able to do what we could do. And I thought the crew, the paramedics were exemplary.
They had to do a great job, right?
Goodness me, they were out there about as fast as you get out there. And
they ran out on the field.
And I don't think I will ever quite forget the look of Josh Allen's face. It was just,
Stephon Diggs, all of these guys. I forget who I didn't catch the name of the other guy, and it was had a little
just
hat
in
on
tears.
and lamp black. And he was distraught. He was sitting with a coach.
Yeah.
Well, it would be horrifying. You've played a lot of sports at different levels, whatever. Guys get hurt, they fall down. The last thing you want is for one of your friends to be hurt. And even if the guy's on the other team, you're not even if he was the biggest asshole on the other team, you don't want to see a guy writhing in agony on the ground there. But I've never been in a situation where somebody I was around wasn't breathing anymore.
You're right. It's never. For people who have never played sports, it's hard to comprehend. For those of us who have, at whatever level you play at, they become family because you wind up spending more time with them than many cases than your family, and they're your friends beyond the game, and you're sharing something that you all love. Right. It's not like like you have to go to school and you're sitting next to somebody who's okay, I got to be here anyway. But, you go out to baseball, football, basketball, whatever sport you choose, you go out to that practice because you want to be there. Yeah. And the other guys or girls, whatever, team you're on, they want to be there too. So to embrace all of that. And it was just a remarkable show of love. And let's hope now with these little itty bitty signs of hopefulness for Hamlin. Let's hope that.
Hey, love to see this guy. I mean, waiting for some good news here that the kid's going to make a full recovery or whatever. But all right, and now this was pushed aside, but it is worth touching on. It's not being insensitive to Hamlin's situation. Very well put. I mean, everybody, it seems like, is united around the country, and it's nice to see a little unison there on the side of something that actually involves some form of humanity, because that's not the direction we've been going in for the last. When did Trump come down that escalator? I guess this was going on before that, but
I'm enjoying. By the way, I'm enjoying the chaos of we still don't have a speaker. I'm kind of enjoying.
Oh yeah, that's kind of cool too. Yeah, and when you look at the faction that's against it, I mean, these people aren't even qualified to run for dog catcher.
I know.
They're in their House of Representatives.
It's like you're cheering for these knuckleheads who don't want them in as Speaker of the House. It's like, wait a minute, what's wrong with this? What is the whole concept of this is wrong?
It's funny too. I watched a lot of CNN, flipping around, and they have made a change in terms of their overall policy and approach, in that you would have never seen prior to this new guy taking over, whose name escapes me, any Republicans of any sort being interviewed, unless it was, some tragedy that took place and it happened to be in their district or whatever. But lately they've been having these guys, come on as regular guests. And, to my surprise, even though I disagree with their policies for the most part, at least there are some respectable guys in the party. So that was a nice thing to discover. But this maniac core of 19, led by Matt Getz, right? I mean, this guy is a trip unto himself. So
no conscience, zero.
Nice to see what's going on there. I love a little chaos. All right, but speaking of chaos, I mean, there's look, Tony, you know this as well as anybody, and people, take all of these things into consideration, and there's a lot really riding on it, a lot of ancillary stuff, totally unimportant to the life of this young man. But nonetheless, would be important to us and still remains so, because what do you do about that game? Don't you have to scratch it? And then that has implications and ramifications and an impact on so many things, not to mention even the wagering dollars that are on various teams to win the championship this year, maybe substantial amounts of money, where you're now going to have to sort of, in a funky fashion, decide who's the number one seed in the AFC.
Yeah, I think that with all due respect, I think the betting dollars is at this point not relevant to this what they're trying to figure out.
It might be if you had 300,000 on the Buffalo Bills to win it all, and you were hoping they had home field advantage. That like I said, is a separate and distant consideration.
I first of all, we know flat out the league has come out and said they're not going to play this week. My guess is, this is my guess, they're going to play out this week, see where everybody winds up, and then figure out, okay, do we need to have this like playoff game between these two teams? And when do we do it? How long of a rest do we need? So if they play Sunday, what do we have? Cincinnati. They're both teams that are at home.
Cincy and Buffalo.
Buffalo against the Jets and Cincy against, I'm trying to recall.
Buffalo's playing the Patriots, I believe.
Is it the Patriots?
Yeah, that's a big game for the Patriots and for the Dolphins, obviously. It has huge implications.
But I think that once the regular season is over, then
Bengals play the Ravens.
The Ravens, yeah. So, because our daughter has the Ravens game Sunday night. This Sunday.
Nice.
Yeah, that's a flex game. So, anyway, my guess is that they will, if needed, which it will be, they'll figure out when to put it in once the regular season is over.
How do you do that, though? I mean, unless you postpone the playoffs by a week.
You could.
To play one isolated game. I mean, you
may want to. You still have that week of flexibility between
the
the
Super
last
Bowl, yeah,
playoff
okay.
game and the
There are
Super Bowl.
Two
So you
freaking
could,
weeks that are not needed, and it's stupid. And in the past, they have moved that back when there was they had it set up for COVID, but they never needed to. But in when they had the lockout, they had to move it back, and it didn't affect anything. So to me, instead of skipping this game, I'd rather them do that than skip the game. Unless it really
postpone everything for a week?
Yeah, no, get rid of move everything back a week after, so you get rid of that extra week between the
Super Bowl. Yeah, well, that's what I'm saying. I think that extra week between the Super Bowl and the last playoff game, we've done without it before. In fact, players like it. The year of the strike, when the Dolphins won the Mud Bowl in against the Jets, they flew out right away because the game was going to be that next week.
Yeah. Did Shula order them to water down the field that day? You would, Tony.
It was pouring.
Did you ask him aside?
Hey, Don, I mean, just speak of that. We'll get back to it. But you remember that weekend we had just.
I remember being at that game with AJ.
Well, we had a civil disturbance earlier in the week in the area, and then we had the monsoons and the rain, and AJ Dewey, you couldn't even recognize he or his uniform after the game because of all the mud. That was great.
Who was that? Richard Todd was throwing those picks?
Yeah. But anyway, that would be my guess. So my guess would be they would use that week. Maybe they'll still have those early playoff games or whatever, but they will have that week to get the Bills and Bengals game in, and then get rid of that open week between the Super Bowl and the playoffs. Now they got
you'll be pushing back this big wild card setup they have going for next week. Now the complications there, though, Tony, I would imagine are many, including
TV,
network
everything.
time, and stadium availability and whatever.
Gosh,
I mean, who knows? I mean, maybe some team had like a monster truck thing planned for
Yeah, well, they may
which we have, I believe. I think during the first week of the playoffs. Since week 7, they've scheduled this monster truck jam at the Hard Rock Stadium. That's a sure sign your team is done for the season.
Fortunately, there's not another sport using those fields at this point in time. So I think yes, there are a lot of moving parts, but I would have to believe. You know what? I should have.
I think they take like a simple solution, even though it's unfair, and this does throw a lot of things out of whack, and they just cancel the game and say we're not going to play that game. Kansas City ends up the number 1 seed. It's so unfair. I mean, to so many different people.
But you know what? I think you know what.
But I mean, what do you do? Is discretion the better part of valor? I mean,
let's take your point, which I don't disagree with, because I think the way the teams are feeling right now, they probably would be okay. It's like, okay, we get it.
Yeah, maybe. Look, everything that you're taught in terms of sports cliche approach by coaches and teams is that you fight all season for what? To get this home field advantage. So here, these guys have. I mean, this has been a wild season of NFL games. I think it's been among their most entertaining seasons that they've ever staged. Okay, college football too couldn't be any better this year.
Could not agree with you anymore.
This isn't even coming out of COVID or anything. We're already years past that.
No.
But, I mean, the games were all of thriller and Manila type dimensions. I mean, always coming down to the wire. Even the boring games had wild finishes. So
let me tell you what I'm going to do is, and I should have thought of this earlier, but little did I realize that we still wouldn't have a resolution. A dear friend of mine was do you know Jim Steig? Jim Steig.
I've heard of him. Yeah.
Jim is a dear friend of mine, but was in the NFL office for years. I mean, decades upon decades. He lives on the West Coast, so it's not fair to call him now. But let me get
give him a shout, Tony. See what
give him a shout and see what we come up with. And then we can reconvene and come back on if we need to at some point during the week and just talk about it. But I do believe that the two things that we're talking about are in play. I would have to believe, and I haven't talked with anybody, I would have to believe that open week is in play, where they push everything back, and then just canceling the game. But I think canceling the game, they would have to figure out how to best, manage that and manage the teams.
I mean, you create a bad inequity because we would have never known. Now you're conceding the number 1 seed to Kansas City. They would end up having the best record. And if they win their game this week, I mean, that's, assuming they beat the Raiders, but they would have 3 losses. So would Buffalo, and Cincy would have 4. So now you're going to give them the number one seed, and that does alter the course of a lot of different things.
Absolutely.
They get a bye week in the first week then, where they otherwise might not have, and they have the home field throughout, where if they play one of these other two teams, who might have also had the bye week and home field advantage. I mean that swings a lot. I mean that carries a lot of weight.
It does. It really does. It does on how it plays out. We'll just have to see.
It was amazing. I mean, to think about all that was there. And it looked like it was going to be decided in an electrifying fashion. I mean, the way the game started out, and then you have this unfortunate thing with Hamlin, and I was saying the other day I've been to a boxing match in person where one of the fighters ended up dying as a result of his injuries in the match, and he did survive though for like a while on respirators in the hospital, so it wasn't like he died in the ring. But I've watched on TV, many fights. Not many, but I mean as many as there have been, which is horrifying. I mean, but even going all the way back to like Zora Foley, I don't know, where you're watching the Gillette fight of the week at the time, and that guy's dead. It's just absolutely a horrifying thing. I mean, you can't imagine, coming back from that, but. I mean, the stage was set for, just an electrifying evening, and ended up in that kind of horror, which is one of the weird thing about sport and how it's a reflection of life. That maybe your greatest moment of glory, could be also your most tragic and overwhelming moment of heartbreak. Which
I do have to tell you something.
That's very poetic. I should write for the newspaper, huh?
No, I don't
think
think
so. My story. Yeah.
No, I don't think so. I am not the biggest. How do I put this? I'm not the biggest style fan of some of the hosts, right? So Booger McFarlane has just always been an okay guy. I mean, in terms of, but I thought he stepped up to this moment on Monday night as beautifully as you could step up. I stood up and applauded this man.
Wow.
He was
we panned the entire thing. I thought all of these guys.
Let me tell you what, Jeff. You put your ass in that seat at that.
I have been in that seat, and you have too.
Not like that, but not like that. I thought
I was on the air when 9/11 attacks occurred.
Well, yeah,
and we're doing one of these kind of talk shows where everybody's laughing and having a good time, and then all of a sudden you're transitioning into that.
Yeah,
you have to be able to do it. I thought Joe Buck was awful. I thought Joe Buck
was.
Aikman, vapid, nothing to say.
So out of his. I thought
and there's a stroke job article in the Post today by Andrew Marchand, who was talking about how Buck, it was all a blur to him, and Buck is saying, I don't even remember what I said. And I'm reading this on the throne this morning. I'm saying, I remember what you said. Nothing, Joe. That's why you can't remember it. Nothing. You had nothing to add to the situation or perspective. Nothing.
It goes back to this, and
I'll give you Booger, but Susie Colbert, awful.
I mean, Susie, I was disappointed in.
She disappeared during that. Process.
I thought I just was disappointed in that. I thought after the game with Scott Van Pelt that Ryan was excellent.
Ryan Clark.
Ryan Clark. I thought he was really, really good. You know what? This is the difference between people who allow themselves to take the curtain back. Okay. No. I think that Buck and Aikman are always so in a box.
Yeah.
Right. They're just always so strict. And,
you wouldn't even know that Buck's hot wife was like doing the pregame show. That he was even married, right? You know nothing about this guy.
Yeah. You don't ever. I think Buck does a great job as just a straight up play-by-play guy.
He's all right. Yeah.
But it's not, you don't look at either of those guys and go, God, I'd like to have a drink with them. Right. You just don't. Right?
No, it's not like Meredith and Cosell.
Right. And I'm going to walk back again. I thought that the people that stepped up showed their heart, showed their feelings, allowed people to get to know them. Okay. Because you know what? With all the hurricane coverage I've done, when Hurricane Andrew hit, people still come up to me and they say something to me. And, I would say on the air, this just didn't impact your community, it impacted the community I live in too. So we're all in this together. I mean, literally all in this together. If that moment, I don't care if you're a football player or not, didn't impact you in some profound way, and if being a football player and on the air with responsibility that these people have, or being Joe Buck or being Susan, whoever, if that didn't impact you in some profound way where you can use life experiences to help explain how you're feeling and how everyone else must be feeling, if you can't do that, then shame on you.
See, that's
Because
very
you need to
unprofessional, I
be
thought.
you
Yeah.
need to
That's
be
the
able to
thing.
do that.
No,
That's the thing.
I thought it was terrible. Go ahead, Louis.
Well, I'm putting it. Who dropped the ball to me is the producers and the
Yeah.
net, because that's what's good. If you're going to be this monster network, which, like for me, when I have to try and get guests or do things on the fly, it's so fun because I'm by myself. When you have a team of people, like to me, the fact that they never went anywhere. Like I didn't watch it like Defo. I didn't grade it to that level. I saw Twitter loved it so much, and I was like, okay, it didn't bring me in, so I didn't watch it. So I guess that sort of goes to Defo's point. My thing is, when you have broadcasts and something comes out of nowhere, you find an expert. Always. That's what the news people went to MSNBC because they did it. They found a medical expert. They found, if you're going to do conjecture, they didn't even want to touch conjecture. Well, that's all we had was conjecture.
Yeah.
So go find people who can do the conjecture.
Get me Narduzzi on the phone. Yeah.
Get coaches.
Somebody, I agree. There was no.
Buffalo. Like, come on. This guy was supposedly beloved. Supposedly he's a great
Yeah.
dude. You tell me you couldn't find people to speak to his nature, speak him up. You want to be positive and hope, speak to how great he is. Why are you just going back to Susie Colbert, who has nothing to say?
Oh, my God.
Was trying.
They put her
all to me. Like
they put her in a tough spot, and she.
But Tony, I mean, you were covering the Olympic Games, looking to see what Skeets Nehemiah could do, in the hurdles, and the next thing you know, you're covering a bombing.
The bomb goes. Oh yeah, listen,
you have to be able to do. If you're in this business, you have to be able to transition. These are supposedly the top guys in the industry.
I agree,
and
totally agree.
I thought Lisa Salters, kind of dignified the broadcast a little bit. I kept waiting because you think I'm Mr. Cynical. I just want to pan everything, but I kept waiting for some redemption to come from these guys. Like Troy Aikman to say, hey, you know what? We were talking to these guys on the team, and they all, talked about this kid in this light. Something. Give me something.
There was. I didn't see any humanity in those two.
That's the problem.
I did not see any humanity
or any direction to what they were trying to, do. Except they kept throwing it. I mean, we've done that when we've had technical difficulties. We've thrown it to 100 breaks. Okay, we'll be back after 48 commerals.
Yeah,
right? And then you come back for a second, you still hear the same garbage, and you're like, okay, we're going to take another 30-minute break.
I was disappointed. I really was.
Very bad.
But again, I want to shout out Ryan Clark and Booger McFarland. I thought they were, Scott Van Pelt. They have they have that it factor. They can handle things. I mean, one of the things when I got to news, one of the things that the producers couldn't understand is how can I talk on the fly? And I said, well, that's what we did in sports, for goodness sake. I mean, that's what, and you allow yourself to be a human being. If let it impact you. Laugh if something is funny and you need to laugh. If you're at home and you're watching and you're laughing, yes. And if you're at home and something happens like what we saw on Monday night and it impacts your heart in a profound way, then I'm sorry, but you just got to show the cards.
Yeah. Like I said, I mean, haven't done a lot of boxing. You see situations that appear at first to be very grave. And, you might have been having a good time. You're trying to, follow along, kind of follow that line of excitement as if, you were, playing a guitar in a band or something. I mean, you're just trying to give the people the vibe of what's going on and also, describe what action there is. But then all of a sudden, a guy gets knocked out and you're looking at, my God, I mean, you have to be able to transition.
I agree.
To, have something to add to it, even if it's silence, but, to come on and just be, completely empty. I thought it was
empty.
I really felt badly because, I was looking for something. And as Lubie pointed out, you have all the resources of ABC, Disney, ESPN. You should be able to at least at least give me some background on who's on the ground.
Here's what you do. You
Yeah.
contact the producer from Good Morning America, who they have the medical expert. Get the number. Tell them we need you on the air now.
Yeah, I mean,
or at the
that was
very
hard
least,
to speculate on. I understand that.
at the very least, put somebody on the phone.
Yeah.
Just to tell us these procedures.
What could have happened? Yes, because it was
exactly.
not, the typical thing that we've been, examining so heavily when it comes to football on any level now. Which, what's funny is that there's so much talk about concussions and head-to-head hits in the pros, and yet watching these bowl games, Tony, especially the last few weeks, it's just a frequent occurrence on the college level. I mean, these guys are crushing each other at very, very high speeds.
By the way, I listen. I know I'm on the committee, but what a night at the Orange Bowl! What an environment! What a great game!
Was Gloria there? Did Gloria show up? Gloria Estefan, was she there?
I did not see her.
I don't think it's in Miami unless the Estefans are there.
I love Gloria and Emilio. They're dear friends. But I just it
very
was
down to earth,
fantastic.
Those two people.
Yeah, they
very
really
down
are.
to earth.
Yeah,
very
and
humble.
what a fantastic night. The outpouring of Tennessee fans was incredible. The events during the week that the Orange Bowl put on, I thought was just from the coaches' luncheon to the prayer breakfast to Rhapsody to. I mean, it's just incredible, and a shout out to Eric Palms and everybody on the Orange Bowl.
You're the only guy that looks great in an orange jacket. I saw Dave Heffernan had some pictures up. I guess he's on the committee also. Half one of the great guys, and
great
had
guy.
the pleasure of working with him for many, many years on the radio. But and followed him as a Hurricane football player. But you're the only guy, really. I mean, you're like Regis Philbin, man. You pop out there. It doesn't matter what kind of, or Lindsey Nelson, whatever wild jacket you're wearing, you still look good, Tone. It's a nice characteristic. Yeah.
Thank you.
You were hobnobbing with some big shots, though, were you not? Come on.
Yeah. Let me tell you. I'll tell you my Regis Philbin.
Joe
story.
Biden, did he come down? Biden and seek you
Joe?
out?
No, JoJo. No, JoJo didn't come down.
Trump
JoJo.
was Trump at the game.
I don't think he was there either.
I wouldn't have been there.
Everybody else was in orange, he would have been unrecognizable.
It was very funny. It wasn't the time to bring it up. It really was not the time to bring it up. But I spent first of all at the coaches' luncheon, I spent time sitting at my table was Bernard Clark and Dewey Selman, both of whom were inducted into the Hall of Fame.
How many Selmans played in the NFL?
There were three. There was Lucius, Dewey, and Leroy.
They're all good. Leroy was the number one guy.
And Dewey, which I did not know, and shame on me, was not just an academic All-American. He's in the Academic All-American Hall of Fame.
Oh, yeah? Wow.
And just a remarkable man. His speech was his acceptance speech into the Hall of Fame was just, it was Lou Gehrig-like. It was just sweet and honest and just a wonderful guy. And seeing Bernard Clark says to me, he goes, someone said you just flew in? I said, yeah, from Vermont. He goes, did you go through Albany? I go, yeah. He goes, I was an assistant coach at the University of Albany for 4 years.
Wow.
Who knew? And
you
now
have to fly through Albany to get here?
Yeah. Now he's the head coach of Robert Morris College. And it was great to see him and meet his mom and his wife and his kids and Dewey's children. And it was just so, everything was just so well done. And my son came down and took his girlfriend and came with me to these events. And he was wowed. He was just, and he's been to a lot of events, kind of hanging on to me.
This is your game, though, Tony. That's what I love about you.
You
are great in these environments. You really are.
But it has nothing to do with me being good. Well, thank you for that. But just the way things were put on. I mean, and then the game itself to see the game play out the way it did. Yeah. I thought it was fantastic. I'm so happy for Josh Heupel and Tennessee and their fans and. Difference in 80% of that stadium had to be Tennessee fans. It was incredible.
What kind of gyroscope was in the ball that the Clemson kicker was working with? Did you get any insight into that, man? I mean, this guy could not hit shit. Wow. A lot of missed field goals were big. I mean, the professor has been railing about this all year long. I mean, being a big gambler in investing, and you hate to see your money go up in smoke because some guy misses a field goal from 28 yards. But to see that Ohio State game boil down to this Ruggles kick, and then I thought of you immediately.
Oh yeah,
because I'm thinking, wow, I mean, this guy is in the moment, and he seemed like the kind of guy. His whole resume would lead you to believe that he was going to come through in this spot. And wow, that was one of the worst attempts. If Lubie had kicked the ball,
that was a Charlie Brown thing.
It was a gimme kid too. It wasn't like it was like a gimme.
Yeah,
I don't know if it was a gimme so much. It was 40 something.
Yeah,
I think.
You don't know what these kids go through. You don't know. I mean, the environment.
What a shame!
Oh my God! Yeah. I just we were on a group text, a bunch of friends, and I was going, "Wow, this is like FSU all over again back in the '80s. It's like wide left, wide right,
but at least the FSU kicks were somewhat, online. So like even Bobby was coming out on the field there and thinking, "I got this one. What? It missed."
So listen, my heart. Ed sent me a photo. He was at the Hooters in Columbia.
Yeah, how'd that go? We're going to talk to Ed in a minute.
Well, I feel bad for him, but from a journalistic standpoint, I mean, this is the Cinderella story you dream of.
You called it though, Tony.
Georgia,
I also
TCU,
want to give you credit because we laughed at you when you were the only guy that was giving TCU a shot there against Michigan.
Yeah,
and I just thought, as much as TCU has been doubted all year by everybody and underdogs, and they opened up a 13.5-point dog. Are they really 2 touchdowns worse?
Yeah.
And now it's down to 12 and a hook. So people are seeing the same thing that others did. That how could you give this team 2 touchdowns? At the very worst, they're going to fight to the end there and maybe get a backdoor cover, even if they're down 3. But Georgia has been vulnerable. And by all rights, they're losers in this ballgame.
Yeah,
It took a series of fluke incidents for them to end up in a winner's circle there and go on and try to defend their title.
What I was going to tell you, just real quick. So at the game, who do I sit next to? And he's a good friend of mine, and I introduced him to my son. I sat next to Stan Wilcox.
Stan Wilcox, all right.
Stan Wilcox. Now, Stan Wilcox was former athletic director at FSU, but now he left FSU. He's number 2 in command at the NCAA.
Yeah.
And he was.
Is there still an office for the NCAA?
Yeah. And he was part of the Fab Five at Notre Dame.
Wow.
He was the basketball player of like all time during
Fab Five in Michigan, you mean?
No, at Notre Dame.
Notre Dame.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, but he was he played in the streets of New York, and he was a legend, an absolute legend.
Nice.
And recruited, and I introduced him to Anthony, haven't because they both went to Notre Dame, but. It wasn't the time for me to go like, what the heck are you guys doing with this NIL? Can you not wrangle this in and like put some sort of header on it that we can like this thing doesn't get under control? But it wasn't the time to do that. But what a great guy. Stan is just a great man. So we had a really neat time spending.
You might have some insight into how much money they're giving Hartman to leave Wake Forest. School that he has emblazoned the WF on his heart. This kid. He's been there for 7 years, like Plutarski, and all of a sudden, out of nowhere, after having a dynamite season, he says, what? I always wanted to play for Notre Dame.
Do you remember the car, Studebaker? The Studebaker
of course.
Car? Do you know who the Studebaker's first spokesperson was?
Stan Wilcox. You. Ed Garcia.
No. Newt Rockney.
Oh, Newt. Yeah, okay. That makes sense because they were sturdy like a rock.
Yeah,
it's great. Yeah. All right. Speaking of Ed Garcia, and
oh gosh,
I'm curious to see what level of asylum he was seeking in Colombia to try and make sure that nothing ugly happened because I would imagine that he was not in a good mood at Hooters there when Michigan was getting drubbed early in this ball game by TCU. Ed Garcia, how are you? And look at this background this kid has.
Yeah,
it's unbelievable.
We still got it up, but listen, you got to support no matter what, right?
That is right. The sun has set for the season for the Michigan team, which is why I switched it up a little bit. But as JJ said, we will be back. And hey, I'm very, very proud of the team. We did not play our best. Defense and offense are key, but it was a great game. I'm very, very proud of what they accomplished. So. It was a fantastic season. Broke quite a few records.
Yep. Can you give it? What was the environment like in Colombia at that restaurant? I mean, obviously people were there to watch the game, I would hope.
Yes, there was, it was a couple of, I might have been the only person from the US, but there might have been some Canadians and some other people just, watching football. I had to find another spot because they closed at halftime.
Oh, man.
No.
What time of day was
What?
this?
Well, it's same Eastern time, but in Colombia they take their New Year's Eve very seriously. So,
Oh, yeah.
yeah, and but it was definitely different being inside Hooters watching the game. I think I sent you, Tony, a picture. I was rocking the Amazing Blue, but as soon as I walked in, there was a couple of guys from like the Windsor, Canada area, and they sort of like, "Oh, go Blue," and I was like, please tell me they're showing the game here, because I came in a little bit early just to find out. If not, I had like a number 2 and a number 3 spot. But it was a great time. They had it on a couple of TVs, and I was listening to the audio because they didn't have the audio on, which that was a bit of a bummer. But I was listening to the audio, so there's like a 10-second delay. But overall, I didn't miss it. So, but I canceled my flights for this weekend, so I will not be in California on Saturday.
Right.
I feel bad. So listen, there's all this that came out that the Carolina Panthers management talked to Jim Harbaugh, and that Harbaugh could be gone if the right offer from the NFL comes. What do you think? What do you hear?
Well, I haven't heard much. I'm very proud that last time, hey, he said his heart is with Michigan. I hope he continues to do that. I think he gets compensated very well, but obviously the NFL will compensate more, and we'll see. But last time I feel like that Minnesota stunt hurt recruiting a little bit. Hopefully it doesn't impact that too much, but we'll see. Everyone's got a price tag, that's for sure.
Yeah, I sent Ed a note while we were going back and forth when he sent me the picture from Hooters. I go, "Well, how's the beer at Hooters?" First of all, I said, "Did you order wings?" He goes, "Are you kidding me?" And then I said, "Did you get a beer?" He goes, "Yeah, but it's not nearly as cold as Texas Roadhouse."
Yeah,
that's right. Yeah, so Colombia, I only stick with the Colombian food, but they tried to entice me with with some wings and things like that, but I stuck to the empanadas, which is was my favorite.
Yeah. Well, we're turning a new page, 2023, Ed, and Texas Roadhouse. I know we have more restaurants being built around the country, more restaurants open, a new concept coming up. What can we look forward to as we go to 2023? I know we're going to keep the course and do everything like we've been doing, but I know that you always look to make things just a little bit better. You tweak little things here and there. So can you pull the curtain back a little bit for us?
Sure. I'll tell you, for the most part, our 30-year anniversary is coming up on February 17th, which is kind of cool. That Texas Roadhouse has been around. And I'll tell you, if you look at that menu from 30 years ago to today, there's not a lot that's different. We stick to what's great. It's the block and tackle of Texas Roadhouse, just hand-cut steaks. And we don't change things too much. Where the edge has gotten a little bit better, and where we improve is the technology piece. We're making a couple of small changes and trying to make it easier for our guests. We have a couple expansions coming to some of our locations. Coconut Creek's getting an expansion. Port St. Lucie's getting an expansion. So that way we can help reduce the wait for those guests that are coming in. And we're just continuing to focus on the mobile app and just make things, faster for our guests. But the quality is going to stay absolutely the same. And, the service, we continue to focus on that legendary service with some ice cold beer.
What was it like on New Year's Eve? I know you weren't there, but you were getting reports. Can you just kind of, New Year's Eve must have been through the roof.
It was through the roof. It really kind of, changes from where you're at, is what I've really learned, these last 2 years, kind of post-COVID. But the northern stores were absolutely breaking records left and right. Actually, I wrapped up our week this morning. I think we actually broke even a few this past week. That's how busy it has been. The Miami area was a little bit softer, still super busy, but we hit a couple, some of the restaurants at 3-hour plus waits, and we're hitting it right now. Monday I was in Miramar. Last night I was in West Palm, and both of them, by 5 o'clock we were on a wait. It was, school's out obviously, and people are just coming in for that hand cut steak. So, but really, really good stuff. So and I guess, I was hearing and got a lot of compliments. Guests had a lot of fun. The staff made it fun. They were wearing the hats. They had the little whistles and all that great stuff. So couldn't be more proud of the team for rocking out an awesome day.
Well, we look forward to another great year with Texas Roadhouse. For those of you who have never been, shame on you, because listen, Lubie and Jeff and I, we are like the biggest fans, and we're hoping that sometime in mid-February, after you celebrate your anniversary, or maybe right before, the four of us can get together and do a celebration the right way.
Absolutely, let's do it.
Nice. You also earned today on the show, Ed Garcia. I don't know if you remember this guy from Sports Illustrated. He checked out a few years ago, Frank DeFord, brilliant writer. Our Frank DeFord Award for The Sun Has Set, with the sun-setting background on the Michigan season. I mean, that's the kind of thing
That's great.
would have been in the lead of the main article in Sports Illustrated back in the day. Fantastic stuff by you. Thanks, Ed. Sorry about the loss there, but you were in there. You were in the hunt. That's all you can ask for.
We will fail forward. So
yes, we will.
All right, sounds good.
And don't forget, Texas Roadhouse, the only place to go in town. I'm telling you, it's just it's fantastic.
Absolutely. All right, more with Tony Segreto, and then later on, we're going to transition into a conversation with our good friend Charlie Partridge, defensive line coach of the Pittsburgh Panther football team, who coached Hamlin in college, was at least part of the defense that he was coaching, and knows him very well. So we'll get some perspective on what kind of person he was, during his college days, and also, I mean, that was another one of those thrillers. I mean, you, Mr. Bowl Advocate. You couldn't have asked for too much more from the recent bowl activity, including the upcoming championship game, where I'm tempted, even though the points are now diminishing, to go ahead and take a couple of touchdowns with TCU.
Listen, I'll tell you what. Is this the best Cinderella story we could have asked for?
Nice one, yeah.
You don't get this very often.
Yeah, you don't get this very often, and I have to believe that.
How are they not in there with a shot, though, against a Georgia team that, look, I mean, they were life and death to beat Ohio State. Very lucky to come out with a win there. Ohio State, of course, and, getting pounded by Michigan just a week or, whatever, the prior game. And TCU beat Michigan. So if you do the equation here, if A beats B and B beats C, does A beat D? And we'll find out.
I don't know, man. I am just not, I don't know who to say is going to win this game. I just cannot anymore. If people dismiss TCU, then shame on them. They got to at least think about it now. I mean, you don't just listen. I get luck may get you here and there, but you can't be lucky for every game the way they've done this. It just doesn't happen. And the way they did it, the way they get back into it,
they have some nice resolve. That team, they really do.
They really do, and they're fun to watch. And I love the quarterback. It's pretty hard not to love that guy. He reminds me a little bit of Jim Kelly. He's just like Josh Allen.
You love that guy. You thought he might win the Heisman over Caleb Williams.
Yeah. I just think it was and I thought pretty much the bigger bowls were pretty good. Although I have to say this, and please let me know if I'm just like in a dream. I totally forgot about the Cotton Bowl and the Rose Bowl.
Oh, yesterday?
Like a Monday,
whatever.
I just think, first of all, I think having these semifinal games on New Year's Eve is just horrible.
Yep.
And
I enjoyed it, but yeah, it's not great.
And I think the Rose Bowl and the big bowls, New Year's Six Bowl should be played on New Year's, for goodness sake.
Yeah.
They
became the walkout bout. Where
they really did
after the main event.
Yeah, I mean, I get the Rose Bowl being the Rose Bowl and the Cotton Bowl's now in Jerry's world, but I mean, how many people remember to put it on? And other than it being a federal holiday, how many people were off to watch the game? I don't even.
I saw some of the games. Penn State was pretty impressive in that game.
Yeah,
they really were.
Yeah, I saw
we didn't
some
think
of
they
them.
could throw the ball, and all of a sudden they're throwing these little slant patterns and they're going for touchdowns. And they played, like they, had a lot of impetus.
And at the end of the game, seeing Sean Clifford's just reaction to him finally being pulled out, and it was last game at Penn State, I thought, again, it was another real moment, just a real moment that the cameras were able to catch.
All right, we're going to come back, and we'll wrap things up soon with Tony, and we'll have Charlie Partridge with us a bit later on here on this Wednesday edition of the program. It's Old School with Tony Segreto. Back with more with Tony. We have to get into this Dolphin situation. Those of us that are shuddering on the razor's edge, right? 8 9, 8, 9. We recommended 9 to everybody in our listening audience. I think are on a loser leaves town basis here on this one if they don't win 9 games this year.
Definitely.
I presume that with any quarterback, they should be able to beat the Jets at
That's
home.
horrible, and they're at home.
Nobody wants to end the season on a 6-game losing streak,
Oh,
but it's quite possible that could happen. And if that's the case, whew,
Yeah.
then I think that's one stinker of a season. All right, we're going to come back with more with Tony in a moment. Now that. How could they be worse than last year? It's impossible. It's 8:27.
Folks, Tony Segreto here. Let me ask you a question. What do you look for when you go out to eat? Good food, obviously, friendly atmosphere, not too loud, but good energy, reasonable prices, and a place where you feel comfortable. All those ingredients, no pun meant there, are hard to find unless you're talking about the Texas Roadhouse. You see, they encompass all of those attributes. Really, really good food, amazing atmosphere, good for a family, good for a date, or just a night out for yourself, and prices that will make you extremely happy. Their ribs unmatched, steaks hand-cut every day. Everything, and I mean everything, is made on site, including their incredible bread. It's the one day, folks, that you can forget about low-carb diets. Trust me when I tell you, Texas Roadhouse, your restaurant, your destination when you say, where should we go and eat tonight?
From the newly renovated sports bar to the beautiful bayside views captured at the Tiki Bar, Jimmy Johnson's Big Chill has it all. Located at mile marker 104, the Big Chill also offers waterfront dining while experiencing breathtaking sunset views of the Florida Keys. It's simply the hottest spot in the Keys to cool off. That's Jimmy Johnson's Big Chill at mile marker 104 in Key Largo. For more information, call today at 305-453-9066.
Recently, we realized it's not just hurricane season that can hurt us. Any time of year, things can happen to your home or business. And the insurance company can be your friend, but they also can be your enemy. Horizon Public Adjusters, Justina Testa, are here for you to help this process go so much easier. Before you call the insurance company, call Horizon Public Adjusters and Justina Testa at 954-809-8752. Would you go into court without an attorney? So why would you go up against an insurance company without Horizon Public Adjusters and Justina Testa? 7 to 10 times more money recovered with a public adjuster than if you went on your own. If there's no recovery, there's no fee. Give them a call at 954-809-8752.
Tony Segreto joins us with Old School. You probably saw this as a Yankee fan. $360 million San Francisco Giant dollars.
No.
Holy Willie Mays. I think we have ourselves an outfielder and a new hero. I mean, what do you think, Tony? Are you okay with that?
No. Shame on the Yankees if they don't counter with 50 million more.
Yeah. Wow.
Shame on them. Shame on them.
And they have the money.
Shame on them. That's all I
They don't have the
It's probably never happened to you. It's happened to me a couple of times where you come home and all the furniture is gone and all of our clothes are gone. And the only thing you have left, I mean, it's like an empty room. You go to sit down in the kitchen and even that chair is gone. You land on the floor.
What kind of people have you been?
It's not the people. It's him. It
I don't know if
happens
the
over
word
and over again.
psychotic
It's
is,
him.
I don't know.
Not sure exactly
Sometimes
what
I
it is.
wonder. Sometimes
I don't.
Sometimes I.
What
just
you're doing on this show, yeah. you know.
Yeah, I was like, wait a minute.
You had an impeccable reputation.
What have I hitched my wagon to? Have I hitched my wagon to this falling star, or what is it?
Defo and Lubie always have a blast kicking it old school with the iconic Tony Segreto. Brought to you by Catholic Health Services and Texas Roadhouse.
Welcome back to the show on a Wednesday. It's Old School with Tony Segreto, brought to you by Texas Roadhouse Restaurants and the fine people at Catholic Health Services. We have to dive into a few minutes of Dolphin talk here. Tony Segreto, and now the losing streak is at 5. You could make some excuses for this last game. Backup quarterback who'd been on ice for a while, and Teddy Bridgewater in there. He was making a good account of himself until he throws a tragic pick 6. The New England offense wasn't really capable of doing much. People were screaming on social media that when you combine the pick 6 with Sanders, all of a sudden, wayward foot and, the missing of field goals that he used to make as a matter of routine, that they left a lot of points on the board. Otherwise, they win this ball game and clinch a playoff spot. Now they sit there and, I always loved Dolphin Jets, as a talk radio.
Oh, yeah.
It was fantastic. I mean, and then there was a vibe as the people were coming into the stadium, and you saw all of those beastly looking guys from New York who've been shoveling knishes in their face leading up to the ball game in the parking lot, and they got the Altoon jersey on.
Klecko,
Yeah, and I remember Altoon as a
those
tall,
guys,
lanky guy. Yeah, but I
Yes,
mean,
yes.
there's always fat guys would wear the Altoon,
Yep.
and it looked like it was too on because the name would spread. You'd see the occasional Joe Willie. People would just exchange nothing but the most unflattering of insults, as you would invite Jet fans and Dolphin fans to come on the show in an alternating fashion and predict the outcome of the game. And it was great. I mean, it was great hoopla. Now we come to a game that, in reality, should be some substance for Dolphin fans. I mean, they have a chance to win the 9 games and to make the postseason, which they now need the Patriots to lose to Buffalo, which certainly looms as a likelihood. But what do you think? I mean, is this season, in your estimation, a failure in light of the fact that they were 8-3, seemed to be one of the most exciting teams in the league? And, here we sit with the possibility of losing 6 straight to close it out and go to the offseason thinking, what do we got to do now?
I wouldn't call it a failure. What I would call it is a year of learning. I think that there are so many positive things to take out of the season. Listen, 5-game losing streak is not fun. Could be 6 before we know it. We've been saddled with, an inordinate amount of injuries. That should not be an excuse, and I'm not making it one. I think that Mike McDaniel I think this is a new team learning a whole bunch of different ways of winning and of losing and how to respond. Mike McDaniel included in that. First time as a head coach. I would not, regardless of what happens, and we all want to see them get to 9 wins and hopefully get into the playoffs, even if they back in, and hopefully Tua would be ready by then. But if that doesn't happen, I don't look at this season as a failure. I just don't. I still think it as a growth period. You have to admit that it's terribly exciting. We have probably the number 1 and 2 receivers in the NFL in terms of tandem. Certainly the number 1 receiver just in terms of statistics, and Tyreek Hill. I think that we have a much improved defense. I think that we're trending in the right way. We're not like in years past, and we were on a losing streak like this. There was a difference. This team is constantly fighting, doing what they can, despite the fact that they're now on their 3rd string quarterback. A last minute pick from Kansas State. I'm liking what I see. I love Mike McDaniel, and I think this is a whole learning process for him as well. And he admits it. And the way he talks about his team, the way he talks to his team, I'm all in. So I don't look at it that way.
From a personnel standpoint, if they lose this game to the Jets, which I think would be a disgrace, because no team has plummeted in terms of seeing their play tail off from earlier in the season than the New York Jets. They're in total turmoil. They fell in love in New York with Mike White, the substitute quarterback, which fans and media have a tendency to do, where a backup comes in and he looks like, wow, he's way better than the other guy. So, you're thinking you have found salvation. But to lose to this team right now, I mean, they got shellacked last week in embarrassing fashion by the Seattle Seahawks, who were supposed to be garbage this year and somehow may end up, I guess there's a possibility they end up with more wins than the Dolphins.
Well, I want to go back to what I said again, and I want to make sure people understand this. Regardless of what happens, they could win, they could lose. But I really do. I believe in what you're saying is true. It would be tough to see them lose to the Jets the way the Jets are playing.
Oh, totally deflating if that happens.
No matter who's at quarterback, right?
Yeah.
So I would be surprised. It's going to be It's going to be a fun weekend, and I think that the 2 games on Saturday and what we see on Sunday night. I think is going to be pivotal for a lot of teams in terms of the Ravens and the Steelers going at it. It's going to be interesting to see. And it's, what? First of all, did you see, and back to our top story, did you see how all 32 NFL teams changed their Twitter logo to the jersey of Damar Hamlin? And it's going to be interesting to see how teams and games play out in terms of what they do before the game.
Oh, yeah. And it's
going to be curious to see how well Buffalo and Cincinnati play.
I'm assuming that these guys, will be able to rebound and play their representative game. I believe they will.
I
Yeah.
believe that. I believe
Yeah.
that too. But
'Cause they're focused.
You have to admit, it's going to be a good distraction for them now to get back in it. And even that little glimmer of hope that we're hearing from the hospital this morning, again, I think if by game time, if his improvement is one where we should, Jim Sarney, stop it. I would not take Harbaugh over McDaniel. Really? Like, come on. Don't be.
I know what you would do though, Tony. You would take Catholic Health Services over any medical organization that you could possibly deal with, especially when it comes to recovery from things like stroke and various other debilitating injuries and circumstances.
That was a tough segue, but let's talk about Catholic.
Oh, I wouldn't have minded if you attacked Sarney for a while, but we kind of were around.
I love Jimmy too, but I don't. And Lubie's response, okay. Already, you're jumping on his ass. He's jumping on McDaniel's ass.
I totally have no faith in
you're you know what? You're a front runner. You're a front runner, man. As long as your team wins and your coach is doing well, you're sitting up there in the head of the wagon cheering him on. But
McDaniel is finished. He's done.
He's done. He's over.
All right. Catholic Health Services. He may need to recover at Catholic Health Services. If they did mental services, McDaniel would be there and he'd benefit.
He's not done. Anyway, Catholic Health Services, as we enter 2023, folks, keep this in mind. Everybody's getting a year older, and as we get older and more things are happening, do we need this inoculation? Do we need that service? What do we do? How do we do it? How do we get Medicare? How do we not? And again, we keep looking. You look on TV and you see all of these things that could be wrong with you. You start believing all of that. Instead of believing all of that garbage and going to Google and finding out, God forbid, you don't feel well, call Catholic Health Services. Just like say, where can I go? We have so many great places to go, but if you're looking for rehab and you're coming back from, God forbid, a stroke or a knee or a hip, whatever that might be, there's only one place to go, and that's Catholic Health Services. They're renowned for how they rehab people. It's not just us saying it right here. I mean, they are the number one destination in the southeastern part of this country for stroke rehab. They are known for that. They get people up and around quicker than they could have ever imagined and get them back to as normal a life as they could possibly get to, depending on the severity of the stroke. And they do that with every other kind of rehab too. They do palliative hospice. They do in-home rehab for those of you who may not be comfortable going to a facility because you're still worried about COVID or the flu or something like that. They do just the same amount of work at home, and it from occupational therapy to physical therapy, and they do it with a class and integrity that's unmatched by a team of people who care. Truly care. And they don't just care about the patient, they care about the family as well. So listen when I tell you, and when Jeff tells you what he went through with his mom and how Catholic Health Services helped him, please, 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 if you're thinking about a rehab and someone in your home needs it, call Catholic Health Services. One-stop destination.
You and Obi. The only two people that look good in orange like that. I mean, fantastic job by you, Tony Segreto. Always a pleasure, my friend. It's flown by too quickly, as always, and we'll look forward to talking to you again next week. I'm glad you're off and rolling here in 2023, and great job. Good having you on the show, Tony. Thanks so much for being with us.
It was a fun hour, and I'm glad you got the coach from Pitt, and I think it's going to be a great interview.
Charlie's a great guy, man. They had a big bowl win, too, over UCLA. Very exciting finish.
Yeah, it was a great bowl win, and I'm happy for them at Pitt. I hope they continue to that. I love Narduzzi of that upward trend. So.
Narduzzi is seems like a real old salty dog type of throwback.
Oh, he is. He is perfect for that program.
When men were men.
Yeah, I mean that's the way. The steel mills, the way Pittsburgh is, the way those players are. He recruits the type of players that belong at Pitt. That type of player. But anyway, love you guys. Have a great day.
Thanks, Tony. All right, pleasure.
We'll try and find out and get you some info on what the Bengals.
I'm down today, Sunshine. Yeah. I see that game being canceled. That's going to be my final speculation on it. Thanks, Tony. Always a pleasure, man. Tony Segreto, ladies and gentlemen. All right, Jimmy Johnson's Big Chill, great place to go. Mile marker 104, the Overseas Highway, Key Largo. Now is the time. I mean, it's supposed to be like one of those great weekends coming up, Lubie, where it's warm in the daytime, but not overwhelmingly so, and cool at night. And I like that, man, because you can sit out there and watch the sunset, then transition, and have yourself a great meal there at Jimmy Johnson's Big Chill. If you're staying on the property, it's fantastic. If you're not, you're probably going to want to hang out there until the last possible second before you go back to, whatever accommodations you have there in Key Largo. I'm always at like the Sunset Inn. Is that the cheapest place to stay in Key Largo? I believe it is. The Sunset Inn. It's a dump, man. It really is. It looks nothing like the brochure, right? Brochure, wow. You would think you were at Baha Mar in the Bahamas. But when you get there, it's a bit of a rat hole, I would have to say. Always an indicator, too, is when the restaurant is never open. That maybe you're in a dump. That's not the case, though. Jimmy Johnson's Big Chill, man, and that's why it's a great place to hang out wherever you're staying in Key Largo, or if you're just passing through. Fantastic food and drink, fantastic atmosphere as well. Live music all day on those Sundays that John Kajemi was talking about. Really dynamite stuff. You're going to love it. So the next time you're in the area there, Key Largo, or just plan yourself a trip, get down there and transition out of whatever dreck your routine is comprised of. Get down to Jimmy Johnson's Big Chill. Get a real, revival in your life and in your desire to go on and enjoy things. At Jimmy Johnson's Big Chill, mile marker 104, the Overseas Highway in Key Largo. All right, coming back, Charlie Partridge, defensive line coach for the Pittsburgh Panther team, going to join us here, one of our great friends from his days as a head coach at FAU. And we'll talk some college football and some other things. Get a little scoop into an insight into Damar Hamlin and what kind of kid he was when he was at Pittsburgh in just a moment. Now that. It's 8:43. Ponies in Style at Champions, the outstanding simulcasting room at beautiful Hialeah Park. Yes, the grand old lady of thoroughbred racing has never been more vibrant, and you can wager on the races from the top tracks around the country while enjoying a cocktail at the Brass Rail Bar or any of the fine food served throughout the facility. If poker is your game, you're covered in Style. And you can play all your favorite Vegas-style games, including blackjack, craps, and roulette, in Hialeah Park's sizzling hot casino. Get a player's card when you walk through the door for all kinds of generous amenities, including our favorite, free play, when you come out to the ultimate casino and entertainment destination, Hialeah Park.
Hey folks, Tony Segreto here. Since day one, Catholic Health Services has been part of Old School. And since we've started letting people know about them, it's changed their lives. You see, Catholic Health Services, while being recognized as one of the top places for stroke rehab in the country, it's also about a group of people who not just excel in what they do, from the doctors to the nurses to the therapists, on and on and on. It's how they do what they do every single day that separates them from the pack. They do it with a passion, unmatched, and the inclusion of family in every step of the process. Trust me when I tell you this. If you want the best, unmatched rehab with a special group of skilled, caring people, there is truly only one place, and that one place is Catholic Health Services.
These days, we're all looking for comfort anywhere we can find it. Thank goodness for Landlubbers Raw Bar and Grill in the Plantation location, because they are making sure you are as comfortable as possible. First of all, they're not only open for delivery and pickup. All you have to do is go to landlubbersbarandgrill.com for both pickup and free delivery. Their hours have changed a little bit. Monday through Thursday from 3:30 to 10, and Friday, Saturday, and Sunday from 11:30 to 10. You're going to have the best wings in the world. You're going to have a great burger. You're going to have their amazing soups. Again, Landlubbers, Raw Bar and Grill. It's nice and easy. Just go to landlubbersbarandgrill.com for both your pickup and free delivery. Thank goodness for Landlubbers for making you always feel right at home. To be or not to be, that is the question. Whether people are in the mind to suffer the slings and arrows of outrageous fortune, or to take arms against a sea of troubles, and by opposing end them, to die, to sleep, no more, and by asleep, to say we end the heartache and 1,000 natural shocks.
What could that have been about, except to hedge or not to hedge?
The modern day odd couple, Defo and Lubie, are on now. It is, of course, the Defo Show.
All right, welcome back to the show on this Wednesday edition of the program here on South Florida Live. Jeff DeForest, Mike Lubie, Lubitz, and I would imagine, this gentleman has seen Lubie's very versatile and expansive talents on the football field. But I don't know, Charlie Partridge, did you ever envision Lubie doing Shakespeare at any time in your experience, knowing us as you do?
Well,
It's funny you ask because I couldn't understand it. I stood up and moved. That's what I had bad phone reception. So no, they definitely did not see that coming. Thanks for asking.
Yeah, definitely you're going to see Lubie, doing Hamlet on Broadway for sure.
How are you guys? It's good to hear from you.
We're doing well. I mean, the last time I saw you, you were involved, and this has been crazy. College football, I don't think could have been more exciting than it has been in the last couple of weeks. I mean, leading all the way up to a championship game where, again, TCU is going to be a Cinderella story. But having covered some UCLA football when I lived in California, I have a small affinity for the program. And yet I was delighted to see you guys in another one of these wild shootout games defeat UCLA. I mean, how big was that for you? And, that had to be some experience because a lot of these bowl games, especially the most important ones, have been a complete roller coaster ride.
Yeah, it was really exciting. The week leading up to the game, it was the hospitality there. The people that put the bowl game on there, amazing. And then I'll tell you, we were as excited as anything to be playing a ranked opponent. We felt like we finished the season really well. Went 4-0 down the stretch, and then we were excited to play a team that had a good season as well. And quite honestly, we had quite a few number of kids that decided they were going to move on and get ready for the NFL, and we were missing 8 to 10 starters. So in a lot of ways, we had to shift our mindset in terms of what we were going to use and prepare and keep it simple, but also get a preview of what we could potentially look like in 2023. And the off season is always so much better, guys, when you win a bowl game. And it was, like you said, it went down to the wire. They have a great quarterback who's going to play in the NFL, we believe. And, but he ended up getting hurt, and their backup came in, and to their credit, drove down to score there was less than 40 seconds. It was 30 some seconds before Nick Patty, our quarterback, who took over and drove down and put us with no timeouts and put us in the field goal position. And our freshman field goal kicker was Ice, man. He was 5 for 5 on the day. It was impressive.
And that has to be a real relief. Because I don't know, is there a shortage of guys who can actually kick the ball straight in college football? I mean, it seemed like, unfortunately, one of our friends who gets involved in wagering on these games fairly substantially was ruined by kickers. I mean, he literally took his Lou the Toe Groza statue and fired it into the pool after several tough beats this year. Is it not easy to find a guy who can do that? I mean, you have to be thrilled. A freshman goes 5 for 5 in the clutch. Oof.
Yeah, I didn't realize it till someone told me that he was, because he missed a couple earlier in the year, which you almost anticipate from a freshman.
Yeah.
We could see in practice the kind of leg that he had, and quite honestly, you can find kids with leg talent. It's a matter of, I think it's their mental strength, because kickers, half of them are somewhere in the crazy zone.
Yeah.
Seriously, these guys, I've worked with them quite a bit over the years, and I mean that as a compliment, because you have to be a little bit crazy to sit there the whole game, and essentially, you're going to have somewhere with, including kickoffs, probably 8 total reps on the day, and all you do is sit there on the sideline and try and stay warm and think about your rep. It's not like you're playing a normal position where you get so many plays in a row to find your rhythm. No, you don't have time to find your rhythm. You get out there and you make it. And this kid is really mentally strong and did a great job.
No, it's quite an accomplishment and absolutely fantastic. Kickers, knuckleballers, and goalies, I think. Probably. I'm not sure which order would qualify as the weirdest of the weird when it comes to athletes in a category.
Ironically, I don't know enough about goalies to be able to say this.
Yeah.
Knuckleballers last a long time in their profession.
Yes.
Kickers, if they're good, last a long time in their profession. Is that true for goalies as well? I don't know.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, unfortunately, we happen to always hire the guy that goes blind, in his latter years with the Panthers. But other than that, they can last a long, long time. All right. What do you think? TCU Cinderella story, Charlie Partridge? I know you're a huge fan all the way around when it comes to college football.
Yeah.
Were you surprised to see them beat Michigan? And then, speaking of kickers, this Ruggles, who looked like he was built, to come through in these situations. Everything in his resume suggested he was going to make this kick for Ohio State, like your team did. They drive down in dramatic fashion, final seconds, put themselves, with a chance to go to the title game. only to see, I mean, one of the uglier shanks. I don't know. Do you golf, Charlie? I would imagine, don't all coaches have to golf? Is that a prerequisite for being a coach?
Yeah. Well, I'll be honest. I'm one of the few that would rather push mow all 18 holes than play all 18 holes. It's just, it doesn't, for me, it just doesn't compute. I get upset when I don't do well, and then I swing harder, and then everyone tells me to stop swinging harder, and everybody's a golf coach when you golf.
Yeah, a lot of tips out there.
It doesn't click. It doesn't click with my brain, but there is a huge, like I said, I've worked with kickers over the years, and most kickers do golf. The carryover is so real in terms of consistency of swing. You even talk to them about with their foot keeping the club face open. There is a huge carryover with regards to kicking in golf. But you know, the TCU question that you asked, I wasn't surprised. That's no disrespect to Michigan. Michigan is a great team that had an outstanding season, but I'd seen TCU enough through the course of the year, and I think to watch their their championship game that they actually dropped against Kansas State. But that performance by the quarterback was honestly inspiring. Some of the things that he did in that Big 12 championship loss told me that this kid is special. And when you have a special quarterback, you have a chance in every single game that you're in. I mean, every outstanding season I've been a part of, it had a quarterback as a part of it. And that kid is something special. And, as talented and as great as Georgia is, would not surprise me that thing goes down to the wire and comes down to the last few plays for either team, to be honest with you.
Did you ever coach special teams during your long tenure as a coach?
I did. When Coach Wanstead, I was hired by a gentleman named Walt Harris at Pittsburgh the first time I was here. And Coach Wanstead, when he got hired, kept me and moved me into a role that put me in charge of special teams. I was also coaching defensive positions as well. But, I was in charge of all of them, and I had to learn. He put me in touch with some incredible special teams. One of them, Coach Armstrong, who was down there with the Dolphins a long time, put me in touch with him and some other really, Darren Rizzi, some other really, who might sound familiar to people down there, but he put me in touch with some of the best in the business and taught me those positions. Jamie Cole, who very few people know unless you're in this world. He's one of the premier national corn blue, who's local down there. He's a great one. All guys that I've learned from, and it's working with the specialists and coaching those units. It's a unique opportunity. It really taught me a lot during those times. And the thing I loved about it was I got to know the entire team, even though I wasn't the head coach. When you're in charge or working with special teams, you get to know people across your position group, and I really enjoyed that.
Yeah, because I was wondering, I mean, in the general text of fundamentals of special teams, where did Lincoln Riley get that defense of the onside kick where he spread his guys out like the Red Sea had been parted and then watched the ball go 15 yards downfield in this game against Tulane? I don't know if you saw this, but it was probably the worst defense of an onside kick I've ever seen.
I've never seen it drawn up that way, so I couldn't tell you where he got that one.
I mean, just right down the middle. Come on. Somebody's got to grab the ball. No, you got it. You got it. You got it is not a good thing to hear from the sidelines, is it, when you're coaching?
No. Maybe some business decisions made on that play, at the end of that one.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, no, that was ugly, and it cost them the game. I mean, and beyond that, they tried to stuff a run up the middle after they just got stuffed on the previous play and end up with a safety. I mean, horrific. Some huge turnarounds in these games. All right, is Georgia invincible? They open up as 13.5-point favorites. I thought that was very generous. If I was inclined to wager on a ball game, I probably would have taken a shot with TCU in that one at that rate, and that point spread is kind of diminishing a little bit, not overwhelmingly so, down to 12.5, but. Are the Horned Frogs not in there with a bit of a shot?
Yeah, it's a tough one to call. I'm not surprised by the spread. I mean, Georgia's just so overwhelmingly talented. Their quarterback obviously has had an outstanding career. They have defensive players. All the players they lost would have 5 drafted in the first round last year, something off the chart. And just with of similar talent. I mean, Kirby has done a great job of of building a program there, not team. He's got something really special going there. They are going to be tough to beat. But when you look at some of the intangibles and along with the talent and speed, I mean, it's the thing that TCU does have is speed, and what speed leads you to have the opportunity to make is big plays, right? And if they get a chance to score on some big plays against Georgia, then they'll certainly be in it. Invincible, no. I think Missouri took Georgia to the wire, if I remember correct.
Yep.
Yeah.
And I don't care how good you are at saying, ignore the noise and this and that. With social media today, these kids see everything, and you're not going to be able to throw away the newspaper. That doesn't exist anymore. The reality is, will Georgia's players be affected by the fact that everybody expects them to beat you by 2 touchdowns? Obviously, TCU can use that as motivation. They have been the whole way. So I think it's going to be a closer game than that. I think Georgia's going to be tough to beat, but boy, if the spread stays there, I would think it'd be hard for Georgia to beat the spread.
All right, everybody, and we thought of you, and wanted to get, your comments and characterization of what turns out to be, and we're finding out to be, just a remarkable young man. You always love the story. This kid played at Pittsburgh. We're talking about Damar Hamlin, who was, struck with a heart attack, and still is hospitalized and listed in critical condition. Although maybe there are some signs, I guess, are starting to indicate that things are more favorable than I originally thought. But by all accounts, I mean, everything that we see, this kid was a wonderful kid. He was living a dream. 6th-round pick. He had become an instrumental part of the Buffalo Bills, one of the best teams in the National Football League inside of 2 years, an integral part of their defense. So you had him on your squad at Pittsburgh. What can you tell us about Damar Hamlin? Because he seems like he is the epitome of everything that you would like to see in a young man who had a good college career and made his way into the pros.
Absolutely. And to be honest with you guys, and I had mentioned this going into it, we've been asked a little more comments. We just want to make sure that the messaging stays correct and that nothing gets misunderstood. But I can say this, Damar is a wonderful young, and loves 2 things. He loves football and he loves his family. His little brother was around our program all the time. And I want to just kind of leave it at this, that everyone keep praying for him. The world is a better place with Damar Hamlin, period. He's absolutely wonderful. I can't say enough about him. And again, we've been asked to keep it limited. Just we love him and we're praying for him. And like I said, the world's a better place with him in it.
Yeah, and if one thing has surfaced out of these seemingly catastrophic circumstances, which, as everybody, I think, around the country, Charlie is just hoping to hear some good news coming out of this. It's just, you see a guy laying on the field, you're hoping he gives the thumbs up or starts to move his extremities or whatever whenever these things occur. And we're just hoping for some good news to come, from the spokespeople at the hospital about his condition. But, wow, I mean, everything about this young man makes you feel very, very positive about life. And it's, heartwarming to see the response and the amount of people that have not only expressed their concerns, but donated to his charitable efforts and really kind of made this a story where everybody's in unison rooting for him to have a quick and full recovery. Charlie, always a pleasure. Thanks so much. Congratulations, man. Wild stuff at the end of the college football season. I know you'll be tuned in, on the championship night there. And, hopefully things will again be prosperous for you again next year. And we look forward to talking to you many, many times and maybe seeing you during the off season.
Yes.
I mean, name, image, and likeness. Would it be too much for Joey Esposito to lay a couple of $100,000 on a kid that happens to be able to run a 4.340 and catches everything in sight?
Hey, things in terms of NIL, we're not allowed to be involved, and certainly anyone that wants to be involved, they're certainly allowed to have anyone present their business that they choose to have represent.
We're trying to lead you down any number of sordid paths here today, Charlie. I'm sorry. I didn't mean to do that.
Partridge knows to stay away.
It's open season on these shows. Yeah.
No doubt. I would expect nothing less. Hey, I appreciate you guys. Happy New Year, man. Hell to Pitt. Have a great one, guys. Thank you.
All right. Thanks so much. Appreciate it. Yeah, I mean, would it be great to see the Pittsburgh quarterback with a big Cafe Seville
He's a big
logo
pick
on
guy.
his jersey?
It's actually not a stretch. So
Yeah.
Joey's a big pick guy. Like you would think he would want to support the Pitt program. That actually makes a lot of sense.
Yes, yes. I mean, in honor of the Goose, right? His one-time partner in the restaurant, and I don't know if they still have ties to it with the family, but I know the Goose was one of the guys that got him started there with maybe a little bit of an original stake, and was a silent partner for many years, and then became a openly visible partner. And obviously, this has been kind of a very, very bizarre year for Pittsburgh fans, as you not only had to pass into the Goose, but then you had this triumphant bowl victory over UCLA, and then a couple of days later, you have the thing with Damar Hamlin, which but we're still, crossing our fingers and hoping that favorable reports continue to emerge. The latest was that doctors are working to get him to be breathing on his own, which would be a positive sign. Although not necessarily one that indicated that there was going to be a full recovery, but closer in that direction than some other, other updates. It might have been where there has been no change or whatever. It seems like maybe things slowly are going in a more positive direction. So let's hope that's the case. Lubie, always a pleasure, my friend. You're going to be on the road with Mike Mayo, right? Fancy schmancy joint
sir.
today, huh?
Fort Lauderdale Beach, actually. Fort Lauderdale Beach.
Wow.
Yes.
And what with Nicky Mohan on board?
It's a Lauderdale Wednesday edition of the Lunch from S3. Nicky Mohan will be in tow as well. Looking forward to it. Super stoked.
You know what's great about Mayo? His whole demeanor and manner of doing business doesn't change, even with the lovely Nicky Mohan, distinguished journalist. He's still shoveling that food in his face. It's amazing when he goes to these places, and then he pull up, after like a while, like he looks like Joey Chestnut in there with like his 48th hot dog, and they go, "Oh yeah, this is great." Like that's the sophisticated food critic for the Sun Sentinel, in charge of a Facebook page that is so monumental. Zuckerberg or whatever his name is concerned about the power that this thing is wielding. Unbelievable. He's trying to make various concessions with Mike Mayo, so because he has such a sphere of influence now, it's incredible. Anyway, so that's 12 o'clock today, right?
Yes, right
okay,
here.
And then South Florida Live, and then tomorrow we'll have our Hialeah Park Trivia Challenge, a very important edition of Degenerate Friday on Friday, and Thursday on Mike Mayo's Lunchbox. This will be the big test. Now, is Sarni coming out there? Sarni coming out to the Thursday thing at the pizza?
We're hoping
pizza
tomorrow
spot?
is the big food challenge, tomato sauce tasting. Thursday live from
Seems
pizza.
overwhelming, though, the extremes that Mayo is taking us to.
Yeah,
Does
it's
he
like
really
30
need
sauces.
25, 30 sauces? How could you possibly pass judgment in an hour on 30 different sauces and make a
he can do
comparison
it.
of any meaning?
It's just, I don't know how he'll grade all 30.
It would be great if he put ragu ahead of Rayo's on a blind taste test. That would damage his credibility as a food critic, wouldn't it? I mean, shouldn't he be able to identify right away what the premium thing is? No? Well, it's thick and it's spicy, but it's got rich and natural ingredients.
There'd be a clear taste between the $12 one and the $3 one, but you never know.
Not sure that everybody's going to be able to make that distinction, Lubie, because whatever you have first is probably going to be the taste that sticks with you, no? 30 is too many to judge. Come on, Lubie. Who can accurately assess the subtleties and the idiosyncratic differences between 30 different jarred spaghetti sauces?
We're going to see if Mayo can.
I bet he ends up. Did Prince ever make a spaghetti sauce? I think they did. Prince spaghetti.
Yeah,
they were like the lower level, like with ragu. Yes. All right. Well, we'll find out. All right. So that's coming up tomorrow. And then on Friday, we're out at Gulfstream Park, which has been great for all of us. And the food has been dynamite. And the scene, I mean, let's face it, unparalleled. What is our favorite thing to do? And that is host a show from a casino and our parimutuel facility.
Honestly.
And I intend to do that 5 days a week the rest of my life.
One day, yes.
That'll be fine. Maybe 3 days a week. Maybe we'll cut down to 3. All right. We'll see you guys later on. Mike Louie Lubitz will be with you with Mike Mayo from a fancy schmancy restaurant on the ocean. And Nicky Mohan will be on board for that. Mike Mayo's Lunchbox, 12 o'clock today. We'll see you tomorrow at 7 in the a.m. as we leave you now that.
The time.
9:06.
Let's go to eat a damn snack.
Look what they've done to my